Hello everybody and welcome to another Beyond All Reason video. Today we have a 1v1 on Hades Ponds of Goopy versus Barcast. Now, we haven't seen this map on the channel before, so let's just quickly go over a couple of features of this map. Firstly, we can see that there is several sections of high ground. As we zoom in here, this bottom hill here has a triple mech spot. Could have been a spawn point, however these cliffs look like they'd be traversable by bots and therefore probably not as defensible as you would think. However, would give good radar coverage, and also you can see several colored crystals around the map which has a very large amount of energy in them all across the map. Now also, the water makes a very important distinction in this map here, as that is going to funnel units into specific points. So from each player's start position, you can see that they're going to have to go down these paths on the top and obviously all the way down there in order to get to the opponent's base. So it can be quite choky here. It's not like Comet Catcher, for example, which is completely wide open. And as we wait for, this initial stage to get going, I just thought I'd quickly remind you that if you haven't hit that subscribe button, to go ahead and punch it if you like more Beyond All Reason content. I'm getting very close to 2,000 subscribers, so that would be absolutely amazing that if you could hit that button for me. And with that out of the way, let's go ahead and zoom into Goopy's base. So Goopy today we see playing the Armada and has started off with the bot lab. Already producing some wins, building a huge amount of wins here, and 2 expanding engineers are already on their way out. Whereas Mr. Barcast TV over here, another great YouTuber for Bar, so if you like my sort of content, you're probably going to like his as well, so definitely recommend you go check him out. He is Cortex today and has decided to go vehicles. Now that one tick will not last very long against all of these scouts, but decides not to go for any harass, just got a bit of information about starting position and then moved on. Now, saying that, we may see Barcast about to get one himself. No, unfortunately, very close, but doesn't manage to get a metal extractor. That pawn coming out just in time to save the day here. And then we go back to the stand-off kind of position. Now, Goopy in this bottom right-hand corner, leaving his scout down there just to provide a bit of information about expansion. Now, what do we expect to see in this game? Now, straight off, we're seeing a difference in playstyle. Goopy keeping his commander in his base, whereas Barcast is using his to expand. Now, Barcast moving his commanders, we can see it's all queued up around here. Technically, it means he'll be able to expand somewhat quicker because the commander obviously has a substantial amount of build power. Oh, is it going to get that? No, unfortunately not. Does have a substantial amount of build power, but the issue you have with that is that he is leaving his base completely exposed, and also means he's going to be having less units on the field because Goopy has not got... Oh, that does manage to get an X. Goopy is putting all of his build power into units, and obviously Barcast is not. Some great early harass here from Barcast, managing to get 2 metal extractors with 2 separate scouts, and the scout actually survives. And that scout on the north side is again trying to get in, see if he can thread his way through the defenses. Unfortunately gets taken out. Barcast with a lot of scouts here, and only just starting to decide to transition to incisors. We can see Barcast is actually ahead here when it comes to economy, purely because of his commander expanding. And you can see how quickly he's managed to push out with that commander. Whereas the Southern Engineer is still, you know, taking his time to actually get going. But Resbot's already out. Now, that is going to give Goopy a bit of an advantage here because there's so much energy that he can just reclaim, that it means that Goopy probably is not going to need to invest anywhere near as much into energy. And this incisor is going to get destroyed very quickly. The same on the north side. I mean, look at this. Goopy has 9 pawns on the north, and he had another 7 that was defending his south side. Does manage to get a windmill with that last scout. Whereas Barcast here has just scouts on the field currently. He has no full combat units. And this is not good for Barcast. He is quite a long way behind on units. He has been trying to contain Goopy, which he has somewhat succeeded in, you could argue, because Goopy has not really left his starting position, whereas Barcast is obviously right at the top here. And I think Barcast's just hoping that this early expansion with his commander will mean that he can pump out more and more units. And right now we can see he doesn't actually have the build power in order to make a significant impact. He needs more build power. Now, we do see a bunch of units here pushing on the top where Barcast's commander is already and has built plenty of defenses. Now, when it comes to incisors versus pawns, incisors should trade quite favorably into them. However, with more units just in general, the ability to get flanking damage is going to be more advantageous to Goopy. And we can see that as soon as flanking damage begins, those incisors go down very quickly. And this is a substantial force of pawns. 8 pawns here moving straight towards the base of Barcast. And fortunately enough, that armed metal extractor is a good form of defense, but Barcast does lose a construction vehicle, and those pawns look like they're going to get mopped up relatively quickly now that they're up on that hill. Nowhere for them to run. So when it comes to economy now, I don't know how well you can see it on YouTube, but we can see that Barcast is currently with a metal production here of 47 as opposed to Goopy's 34. Barcast with 400-ish energy as opposed to Goopy's 250. Now that's up to 300 now, but still, look at the unit differences. We've got 15 pawns on this north side here, whereas Barcast maybe has about 6 incisors total. He's purely hoping that the armed metal exploiters and LLTs are going to do a decent job at holding out here. Barcast desperately needs more units. He is trying to get this construction bot, which he probably will get, and then lose all 3 of those incisors. Does manage to get a single pawn for his trouble. But Barcast losing yet another construction vehicle. And Barcast not able to get enough units on the field here to kind of stem the tide of pawns. Oh, interestingly enough though, shurikens starting to come out here from Barcast. And for those that aren't aware of what shurikens are, they're basically Tech 1 Cortex paralyzing drones. As we can see here, the pawns are now completely stunned for a mixture of 6 seconds. Pawns do somewhat do a decent job at killing them, but nowhere near as good as the lasers of like a grunt. Now, this can quite heavily turn the tide in your favor when you're fighting outnumbered. You basically completely remove units from the field of battle by stunning them. And Barcast leaves a single grunt behind to tell the tale of the slaughter. Now, one thing I find very interesting here is Barcast is commander is still on this north side, just slowly expanding. And when it comes to map, quickly, if we just zoom out before that big fight happens there, we can see Barcast has basically taken the whole of his side, whereas Goopy is still slowly expanding. And a scout is getting reclaimed on that north side. Yeah, that scout will not be able to do much. Unfortunately, there's a lot of there's an exposed metal extractor there. The construction pot does not get taken out. But Goopy being quite slow to expand. But when we click Goopy here, you can see look how much excess he is in metal right now. That is because he has reclaimed his bot lab. No, he hasn't reclaimed his bot lab actually. It's still there. But he has transitioned over to vehicle. So he has a vehicle and an air lab now, purely going for fighters to wipe out those nasty shurikens. And we have a little bit of a small fight here, but the biggest one to worry about is this one on the north side here. This is a substantial amount of grunts, 28 pawns, and that armed metal extractor will go up but gets destroyed instantly, and so will that construction vehicle. And again, mistakes by Barcast as he builds 3 radars right next to each other when I bet you he meant to build laser towers. And the sheer unit advantage is so heavy in Goopy's favor here that Barcast is starting to struggle. He's slowly losing his expansion. He has actually transitioned to grunts himself with the hope that he can get a bit more units on the field, but that's not really going to help because Goopy has also transitioned over to main tanks here. And just keeping Barcast off of this hill consistently. Which is funny because Goopy doesn't even have that hill himself. But again, Barcast really struggling here to maintain a fairly decent unit counts. Pounders doing a great job at knocking out all of those pawns. Fighters up for both teams here. No bombers being produced yet, though. And a second vehicle plant being built by Barcast. Now, I'm not sure if we're going to see any Tech 2 here, but we see this force now pushing along the north, doing a substantial amount of damage to all of the work that Barcast commander has done for such a long time, and making it all for naught. Shurikens coming in here do cause a bit of problem. There are no forces other than a few incisors here that's really gonna stop this push. Forces now finally coming in to assist. Fighters about to come in to take care of the shurikens. But Barcast obviously has his own fighters, so this is who's going to win air superiority. Zoom out a bit here just to give us a bit of an overview. And Barcast wins the air. Now full tanks coming out from Barcast as well. No reclaim field for you, Mr. Goopy, as he has to desperately run his Lazarus spots out the way. Now that tank force may be able to escape if it keeps running here. It is getting chased down by Barcast, but at the same time here, we see a substantial force of pawns attacking the bottom side. We'll quickly switch over to that. The pawns manage to get through the defensive line, and there are no forces down there to defend at all. And that's going to be a substantial economy hit here against Barcast. Switching back over to the top, both players' attention has been pushed elsewhere, and Goopy's line of forces just stopped 3 damage being taken here by Goopy. As we switch back over, the whole expansion there gets taken out. Goopy leaving 2 pawns behind to deal with that construction bot. And some forces were sent down, but not really enough, and not being microed, as Barcast is trying to focus on this North army instead. But this is very dangerous for Barcast. Luckily enough, Goopy's micro attention was split up too much, and those forces of pawns are basically wiped out. Meanwhile, on this north side, Barcast's attention going for a second, and his forces get surrounded. He does still have fighters overhead, but no shurikens there, so not really a point to keep them there right now. And that is a pretty decent sized reclaim field at the top here, 1.8k. The reclaim field in the middle, which was another 1k, did manage to get cleared up. Barcast now trying to back out. His poor tank stuck on a wreck, unfortunately, and that will be another lost tank. Barcast does have a substantial amount of tanks, though, moving up for assist. He's got an idle construction bot here. And fairly good trades right now across the board. Barcast going for a little bit of a push in here, but that's going to get mopped up pretty quickly. And as we quickly just wait to see what's going to happen, let's check out the bases. Both players still stuck with their same factories they've got. As we switch over to Barcast, though, we can see a transition to Tech 2. Surprisingly, though, Barcast with a limit of energy right now. Not reclaiming any of his factories. He's got purely enough metal to keep it going. And the force of tanks in the middle, construction vehicles about to get taken out as well as they sat on the front line. It's another lost construction vehicle, and Barcast just consistently losing units here. Great push on this south side, though, as it gets through, forcing the reinforcement units that Goopy was planning on using on the north to go south instead. I'm not sure how much damage is going to get from this. And unfortunately, Barcast just stops his line, and that will get mopped up pretty quickly here. Barcast, with him transitioning to Tech 2, does not really want to be using like everything he's got. He needs to buy himself some time for that Tech 2 transition, and unfortunately leaving these tanks here is just giving Goopy a lot of reclaim for free. Maybe should have considered self-D in that, as we quickly select something construction based. Another 1.8k metal, another push here along the bottom with these units, just doing a bit more damage, trying to get a bit more economy, but this is the big fight we want to watch here. As the tank shots fly between each other. Neither player really coming out ahead at this side at all. Goopy still yet to go to transition to Tech 2. But Barcast's first unit out of the field here from Tech 2 is a Banisher. Surprising choice, but would work well versus massive groups of pawns. So not a bad idea. Surprising that it is going to the bottom side rather than bolstering his defenses, because Barcast does not have the tank force on this north side to defend against this push. No more shurikens left either, and this tank force will make it to the base if it keeps pushing, but looks like Goopy's happy to just push a little bit forward here, get a little bit more ground. There's another attack on this bottom side here of a group of pawns, but again, gets cleaned up pretty quickly there. Goopy's quite efficient at holding that line on the bottom. And the map is quite evenly split in half, but we do see that Barcast will be slightly outweighed at the moment because he's probably getting some reclaim somewhere, but he's at 126 metal income as opposed to 84 of Goopy. Now this is a problem. Look at this substantial force here by Goopy, and Barcast has nothing. North side as well. The Banisher will do a bit of damage, but it's not going to be able to do anything as it runs away. Goopy's commander not back in base, able to degun. Goopy rushing everything in now, going for as much base damage as he's going to be able to do. Shurikens coming out, desperately trying to defend. Air defense coming out from Barcast here as panic sets in. And Goopy surprisingly not just going all in. Fighters coming in from both sides here, desperately trying to get the shurikens off of his units, but shurikens stay alive. Barcast still controls the air, and the sheer amount of units Barcast is pumping out now, he's pumping out as many thugs as he can from 2 factories, just trying to hold Goopy's army at bay. Tigers coming out as well. I don't know if this is the right time to be upgrading to a Tech 2 metal extractor. Goopy just cannot make his way into the base. Just trying to get some form of economy damage, get some wind. He can get in and get that Tech 2 factory. That's going to be all out of whack for Barcast here. He's going to get completely annihilated. But so far, Barcast doing actually an tremendous job at defending. These shurikens definitely pulling their weight. Banishers not quite so much. A good chunk of wind has gone down right now, and the swarm of units coming in to Barcast base right now is horrific. So many units. Barcast just trying to pump out as much as he can, but his base is slowly being whittled down. And look at the swarm of resbots on this north side as Goopy just resurrects everything outside of the initial attack. 7.4k metal just outside of Barcast base, and Barcast now trying to make the most of this Tech 2. Build up a bit of a Tech 2 force. Goopy yet to transition to Tech 2 himself, and Barcast commander is actually in his base. So he could have used that to degun, but that would have been a bit risky there. Now that was close. Very close to Barcast. But Barcast still needs a substantial amount more Tech 2 here in order to really turn the tide. See this tiger up here get surrounded and get taken out very quickly. But air superiority is definitely on Barcast's side here. Shurikens will definitely help turn the tide. But Barcast needs this reclaim and needs these units up and running straight away. Barcast with a fusion reactor up as well. All of those resbots get caught actually by the shurikens, and that's gonna be a lot of resbots to go down. Goopy actually goes in on that fight as well, trying to save his resbots, which unfortunately doesn't happen. But Barcast losing quite a few tigers to that there, but not as much as Goopy. And look how many resbots are on this south side. 1.4k here, 1.1k in the middle. Goopy has kind of had to fall back here under the weight of Tech 2, as the amount of tanks on this final push here from Barcast is just too much for the stouts to hold off against. Not only that, but the air superiority just means that Goopy can just not do anything against these shurikens that come in. And we may be seeing a turnaround here as Barcast just able to push right outside of Goopy's base. Goopy now just transitioned to Tech 2 himself, and bulls are being produced. Thing is now, it's whether Barcast decides to go after this tank force or to push into Goopy's base. Goopy is ready with his commander to degun, and instead he actually splits his forces. And Barcast may be able to get a fairly decent-ish amount of damage done here, but the bulls are out. Goopy's commander's out. We also don't see this tiger force and thug force on their south side pushing up as well. Barcast doing a great job here. Managed to shut down all of that economy that was... not economy, apologies. The tanks that were left over. And now Goopy has been pushed right back to his base. This one sneaky air defense here doing the god's work. Goopy's comm ready for the D-gun. It doesn't have enough energy. Oh, there we go. Manages to get 2 D-guns off. 4 tigers down. Goopy's commander in trouble. Goopy's commander gets taken out right outside of his base. And Barcast manages to pull the victory from the claws of defeat. And, wow. Well played, Barcast. Managing to hold off against that onslaught of Tech 1 from Goopy. And the win goes to Barcast. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I'll see you guys next time.